Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in data about tying the knot of an Amagami Sister, chapter number 177. This chapter is titled Tying the Skies Together, Realization. And man, I'm just so happy to be back here again today talking about this series. Of course, last week was the first video I ever made in the Tying a Knot of an Amagami Sister series, because I was like, hey, I read the manga after the anime, and I honestly this manga just puts a smile on my face. Why? I will let you guys decide that fact. I'm not going to say anything. We'll leave it up to a little bit of like a fun mystery, you know? But of course, I was like, yeah, let's put out the first video last week. And of course, at the time of recording this video, I think chapter 181 has already come out. I don't know. I'm not fully caught up because I'm trying to hey, the final arc just started for this series. I'm just trying to pretty much go back and talk about this series from the Tying the Skies Together arc, pretty much covered the entire arc until whenever the series ends. So like I said, today we're talking about the second chapter of this arc, of course, titled Realization of Tying the Skies Together, and man, I'm just so happy to be here talking about this series. This is just such a fun chapter, and honestly, I just really can't wait to be going on and talking about it, you guys know what I'm saying? But yeah, honestly, without any further ado, I just want to go and get into talking about this. I mean, I don't really have any funny quips to go and talk about before we get started, and I mean, I guess, yeah, let's just go and get started. So, of course, if you guys don't know what the series is, it's Tying the Knot of an Amagami Sister. It is a harem manga written by Naito Marcy, or Marto Night, or Marcy Naito, whatever. Okay, let me go grab my volume off the wall and see what the, correct way, or at least the English way of saying that is. Let me go do that real quick. Alright, volume number 1 says Marcy Naito. That is the name that we got here. So, of course, the Japanese, the flip name way, or bro, I honestly don't understand that, but, where was I? Yes, this manga. Last time on this series, we had a whole chapter about, hey, we're really skipping forward in time a grand deal to pretty much get Uryu through his Kyoto University entrance exams. We saw that, hey, he ended up passing, and him and Shirahi had a little bit of a discussion about, she's like, hey, Uryu, I need to say it one more time in this world, I'm in love with you, all of this stuff, and Uryu pretty much just had to go through and flatly reject her and be like, hey, I understand your feelings, but I cannot accept whatsoever, because I have 3 girls waiting for me to give them an answer back at home, pretty much, and my heart is pretty much dedicated to them. I'm really sorry, Shirahi, right? And then the end of last chapter was Uryu pretty much walking back to the Amagami Shrine, as he was just thinking, hey, it's finally time. I can't let any of these girls be waiting any longer. As pretty much he just walks up, and we see that all of the girls, of course, Yahei, Yuna, and Asahi Amagami, are all in their Shinto wedding dress attire, pretty much all standing there and waiting. And Uryu is just thinking, hey, at some point I got to thinking I wouldn't mind if our life stayed like this forever. But one day we all knew I needed to make my decision. He's like, hey guys, thanks for waiting. Will you listen to my answer? And that is pretty much where we start off chapter number 177. Again, Tying the Skies Together, Realization. With Uryu pretty much walking up to the 3 of them and just saying, hey guys, will you listen to my answer? We of course see oh my gosh, all of the cherry blossoms are falling, going through the wind, we're blowing through the wind, and Uryu's just staying there. Of course, he's really blushing as he's about to make this big confession. As Uryu's also just thinking hey, thinking back on it, I'm pretty sure from the very start, there was only ever one right answer. For the past 30 days, from the end of my entrance exams until now, I've been thinking through this answer over and over in my mind. Without a doubt, this past month was probably the most crucial in my entire life. As, of course, we see the, braided cord running down the side of the screen. It's whoa, that's pretty crazy, or not side of the screen, side of the page. I guess I am reading this off of a screen, that's why I said screen, but no, of course the cord is running down the page. And, of course, we just see the faces of Yahei, Yuna, and Asahi all in the moment, and I really find it funny, all of their various expressions, because, of course, Asahi is very freaked out, she's not ready to hear what's about to be said. Yahei is very much has not quite a shocked expression. I honestly don't know how to categorize Yahei's expression, but it's sort of just she's sort of just waiting with her sort of mouth open agape a little, she can't even hold on to the breath, waiting for the words that Uryu is about to say. And then Yuna, who of course is my favorite girl, just has this nice little just smile on her face, and she's just politely waiting for an answer. And I really think that's just good characterization for, all 3 of these main characters in this series, and I do pretty much like that. And then, of course, we get to the whole idea of, like, hey, I'm pretty sure from the very start there was only one right answer, and it's like, okay, I am so interested in who Uryu is going to pick. Like, I honestly can't contain my excitement for it. Like, I just don't know what to say or what to do, if you guys get what I'm saying. But, yeah, it's just a very interesting thing of, like, okay, who is Uryu going to pick? Because I have my ballpark, but also, the way this series is set up, literally any one of them could win, and I wouldn't really be upset. I mean, if Asahi won, she's not my favorite, so it's like, she's my least favorite, all things considered. It's like, I would be as happy as if, like, Yahei or Yuna won, but, like, either way, honestly, we'll talk about this later at the end of the video, right? But with this moment of Uryu just thinking, like, hey, this has been my most crucial decision in my entire life, pretty much, we turn back to time frame, about a month, of course, 30 days ago, whenever the Kyoto University entrance exams were happening, as we cut back to mid-February, where the final day of the university entrance exams was going on, right? As we see that Uryu is pretty much walking home from the final day of the exams, and he's just thinking, like, alright, for the interview, I was able to answer all of their questions clearly and confidently, and for the written portion of the exam, I went back over all of the material that confirmed that my score will be above the passing level. So, and he's just, like, walking through the streets, and he's just like, yes! And, like, he clenches his fist, and he even sort of just, like, stands on the ground and just goes, like, yeah, let's go, bending his knees and just, like, really psyching himself up. And, of course, he's just doing this on a regular-ass street through Kyoto, Japan, of course. And there are some people who are just, like, freaked out, like, does this guy have, like, a problem? Like, do we need to call somebody to get him off the streets? But, of course, Uryu has pretty much, like, even though this is before he knows, he has just made one of his biggest goals. And I mean, I totally get how he's feeling, of course. I'm not currently in college anymore. I mean, I technically still am, but the semester's over. My first semester of high school, or my first year of college, my second semester of college is now over. Let me get all my terms correct. And yeah, like, I was in there taking an astronomy exam a few days, and I'm like, alright, well, I know that I at least got these 3 that I wasn't confident on, but, like, the rest I'm confident on. I'm going through and I'm like, alright, so I at least got a 93 on this test, let's go, right? And then I get my test back and it's like, oh, wow, I did even better than I expected, I got 96. So, like, I totally understand how Uryu is feeling right now. He's just, like, confident enough, and he knows what he got, so why not be proud of that? Even though you're probably looking a little weird just going, like, let's go, in the streets, though, right? But Uryu sort of, like, realized this. He was like, alright, no, wait a second. You can't celebrate yet, Uryu Kamahate. The official results won't be posted for another 30 days. And besides, getting into university is only one step on my way. The hard part has only just begun. He's like, alright. And then I'll have to start thinking about my next move. But as he says this, of course, he thinks all the way to a part of the series. I feel really bad because, like, I read all of this series pretty quick. Like, I read it all, like, the other 176 chapters in, like, about, what was that, 2 weeks from whenever I, like, watched the anime, and I watched the anime, sort of, like, put it on hold for a while, and went back and read the manga. So I don't remember where exactly this scene is from, but it was the scene where pretty much Uryu is, like, stuck on the ground, pretty much, and all of the 3 girls are all around him, and Yahei just says, like, hey, which one of us are you planning to marry? And Uryu's like, oh, I'll have to start thinking about that. I legitimately do not remember when this was, but it was probably a good long while ago. As this sort of just pops into Uryu's head, as he just thinks, like, oh yeah, I'll have to, like, yeah, start thinking about my future. And he's like, well, becoming a doctor and taking over the shrine are really important for sure, but the most important thing to think about. But we see that Uryu isn't able to finish this sentence, as he goes up to the shrine, opens up the doors to get to the inside portion, and oh, look at that! There's a bunch of these little, like, twist cone confetti cannon things that suddenly pop as he opens the door, and Uryu is a little bit alarmed by this, as he's just like, what is all of this? As we, of course, see the 3 girls, we see Yahei's there, and she's like, oh, hey, Uryu-kun, good work on getting through all of your exams. Yuna's like, hey, Uryu, happy birthday. And Asahi says, like, hey, Uryu, happy Valentine's Day. Of course, celebrating all of the events that, of course, they wanted to celebrate with him, but they didn't really have the opportunity to before, right? And I really like how all of the girls are sort of focusing on a different aspect of Uryu's current life, right? And Uryu is, like, a little nonplussed by this. Like, I love the expression that he has here on page, what page is this? You know, I don't feel like counting. But the you know, I do feel like counting. What am I talking about? Okay, gosh, it's 1, no, that's the wrong scroll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Page number 8. I know my numbers, right? But I really like the expression that Uryu has on his face here. He's like, what is this, a traffic jam of celebrations? And he's like, geez, what am I going to do with you three here, right? And he's like, hey, don't get me wrong, guys. I am extremely happy to be able to celebrate all three, but isn't it like a little messy to cram them all into one big party? And we see that Yahei's like, I mean, maybe it is, but we decided to hold off on celebrating them until your exams were over. And Uryu, of course, is like, oh, you guys. He's like, he feels very glad to pretty much be told this, and he really likes it, right? But of course, as he now looks up to see the rest of them, we see that Asahi just says, oh, hey, and now that your exams are over, Uryu, we're not holding back anymore. We're going to shower you with affection. And hearing this from Asahi, Uryu's like, oh gosh, please be gentle with me, right? As I really like this panel, as we just see like all of the girls looking down, like these very honestly scary grins there. But at this point, we start with, of course, all of the gifts that the girls have for Uryu, right? As we start off with best girl Yuna, as she pretty much just starts like, hey, okay, then I'll start, as she pretty much brings up this little bit of a hand-knit scarf and hands it over to Uryu and just says like, hey, this is a hand-knit scarf for you, right? And Yuna's like, but I guess it isn't much of a surprise being that you already found out about it, right? And Uryu's like, oh, great, you finished it? Like, hey, thanks a lot, Yuna, right? And she's like, oh, hey, I'm so happy about it. And Uryu starts to put it on, and he's like, hey, isn't this scarf, like, a little too long? As we see, like, he has it wrapped around his neck, like, 3 or 4 times, and then he's got plenty more to, like, just hold in each hand beside him, and he's like, this is a lot of scarf, like, what am I supposed to do with it, right? And Yuna pretty much just explains, like, I love her smug smile that she has on her face, but she pretty much just explains, like, hey, well, after we decided, like, to push back your birthday celebration a bit, like, I kept working on it for, like, the past month, and really up until yesterday, right? So it ended up twice as long as I initially planned it to pretty much go, right? And Uryu's like, hey, well, why didn't you just, like, stop when it was the right length, pretty much? But Yuna just is like, hey, I mean, it's not a bad thing. After all, with this length, as we see that she gets her head and wrinkles it up right next to Uryu's, so both of them are sort of entangled in the presence of the scarf. And this is almost exactly like the image on the cover of Volume 12, if I'm not mistaken, which is just my favorite volume cover in general, just seeing both Yuna and Uryu just like standing together like that with a scarf around them. And it's just like a really nice moment as Yuna just is like, oh, well, we can use the scarf like this, as she just stands there next to Uryu, and Uryu sort of like freaking out a little bit, like he's like, what about this? And I love in the background the sort of like, the sound effect that we have is rap, and it's just like, oh, that's a little funny, right? But I really just love this image we get here of both Uryu and, who's her face, Yuna, standing underneath the scarf. I just really, really like it. And I also love the sort of, like, the banter that the other two girls have in the corner, as Asahi's just like, hey, did you see that, Yahei, pretty much? And she's like, hey, those two are already in an embarrassing stage of their relationship, right? And Yahei's like, yeah, I hear you, kids these days. And Yuna's just like, you two have no right to criticize me. You guys have been doing this for months longer than I have. Like, what are you guys talking about, right? I do just love that moment, right? But next up is Yahei's turn, and she comes up and she says like, hey, it's my turn. What I got you here is a chocolate egg for Valentine's Day. Crack it open and your birthday present is inside. And she's like, and Oryu's like, oh wow, you really went all out with it, yeah? And he's like, oh, hey, thanks, Yahei. And he pretty much just takes like a little wooden mallet and starts to crack it open. He's like, oh, it's pretty big though, I have no idea what could be inside. As he cracks it open, oh, there's another chocolate egg inside, right? And he continues to crack it open until we see that there's like 8 different layers to it, or yeah, there's 8 different layers to it, and he pretty much cracks open the last one. He's like, hey, what is this? Like, it's eggs all the way down, pretty much. And Yahei just explains like, hey, I made it like one of those Russian nesting dolls, pretty much, right? And Uryu's like, oh, well, this last one's a little tiny here. And he's like, oh, did you really put my present in here? And he cracks open the last egg, and he pulls out a ring out of it, and he's like, oh, what is this? And Yahei's like, oh yeah, it's a ring, and she sort of like comes very up close to him, and shows up her, oh gosh, what hand is that? Her right hand, and we see that on her ring finger, she has the same ring, and she's like, oh, look at that, it's a matched pair to mine. They're couple rings. And of course, Uryu is really freaking out, and of course, we have the other two girls bantering in the corner. As Yuna's just like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy. What a totally unique Yahei presentation, right? Like, I don't think anybody else could pull that off like that, right? And Asahi just says, like, yeah, only Yuna, or only Yahei could have actually pulled that off to begin with, right? As we just see the two of them in the background, of course, Uryu and Yahei just, like, sort of flirting with each other. Uryu, like, holding the ring in his hand, just, like, admiring its beauty. And Yahei just being, like, almost in heaven, pretty much, right? And then finally, we see what the gift that Asahi got was. And she's like, oh, hey, it's very quaint that you two thought you could one-up him win him over pretty much with homemade things. I, on the other hand, went a different direction. These are premium Valentine's Day chocolates from a very exclusive shop. As he thinks like, oh, wow, this actually seems like pretty simple coming from Asahi, right? As then both Yahei and Yuna sort of come over and just say like, hey, are you really just trying to play it cool? Like, come on now, we all know what you did. As we look over to the kitchen where we see there's racks upon racks of failed Valentine's Day chocolates, pretty much, right? And Yahei's just like, oh, look at this. Even though you work so hard night after night trying to make the perfect handmade chocolate gift, right? And Yuna's just like, hey, you try to hide it, but now that he can see just how much effort you put into this, right? And Uryu's like, okay, I understand a little bit more here, so that's what happened, right? As he starts to grab some, starts to sort of move it up towards his mouth to eat a little bit, but Asahi runs over and pretty much grabs his arm, pulls it down, just is like, hey, no, you can't eat that. I haven't made one that's good enough for you yet, right? And Uryu's just like, oh, come on now, right? As we then see that he sort of walks over away, and all the girls just start to banter with each other, just like, all I want to do is just make him a nice handmade gift like you two did, right? And I love how the other two girls sort of respond to this, of course, like, showing their familial bond. As Yuna's just like, hey, like, I really think it's fine, Asahi. It shows off all of your good points. And Yahei just mentions, like, hey, I think all three of us put our unique quirks into our gifts. As we just see that Uryu is just standing back and looking at the three of them together. And he just thinks, like, yeah, I mean, I really am happy with all of this, right? But he just thinks about the whole idea of, like, hey, which of the three of us do you want to marry? As he just, like, thinks about all the gifts he just got, of course, all of the chocolates that Asahi tried to make but failed, the couple's rings that Yahei got, and of course, the brilliant hand-knitted scarf that Yuna made. As he just thinks like, hey, if they're putting their feelings for me on full display, I can hardly keep them waiting on my answer any longer. As he's sort of just, like, sitting here, just, like, giving a little bit of a smile, looking at the three of them, as the girls sort of just look over, like, hey, Uryu, like, what's wrong? Like, you look so serious right now. And it sort of snaps Uryu out of all of this. He's like, oh, no, it's no problem, it's just sort of... And pretty much goes on that. And all of the girls just like, hey, don't tell us you bombed your test. And he's like, oh, no, and it's only rubbing in, right? And Uryu's like, no, you guys definitely don't need to worry about that. I didn't do that, right? As we just get a little bit of narration to end off the chapter saying, like, hey, but to give a proper answer to that question might prove to be even harder than the Kyoto University entrance exams. And that's where we end this chapter of Tying the Knot of an Amagami Sister, chapter number 177. I really like this chapter. I honestly think it's a very good thing. So, of course, I had the outlook reading last chapter to understand, like, hey, it wasn't just a strict time jump forward months into the future. That, like, hey, more realistically, we're seeing that Uryu has achieved his goal, and it's sort of bringing us into this hook of, okay, what is going to happen in this month to go back here, pretty much, right? As though, like, time travel shenanigans like this series, of course, does is, like, whole supernatural aspect, but it's more of just a realization of Uryu's like, okay, after my entrance exams are done, I don't have to really worry about those so much for the next month. So let me put my thoughts on full display and figure out which one of these girls I'm going to pretty much go through and marry. And of course, we know in 30 days, Uryu has made that decision. And of course, at the beginning of this chapter, we get the whole idea that Uryu says, like, hey, I'm pretty sure I knew from the very start there was only one right answer. And, I mean, there are 4 ways to pretty much look at this, right? There is the way of, like, okay, he's taking the Yahei route. Oh, he's taking the Yuna route. Oh, he's taking the Asahi route. Or he's going to take all 3. And, oh gosh, I legitimately do not have a prediction of who it is going to be. So, of course, we know there's not going to be any world where Uryu just says, like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. Uryu's gotten past all that. He's going to be marrying one of these girls either way. It's just, which one is it? And I am just so interested to see, and honestly, I will not be surprised at all if it turns out to be the full harem ending. He lives with all three of them for the rest of his life. They all have like a nice, happy family dynamic going on, and I can just totally understand that. And yeah, gosh, I really don't know what else to say about this whole idea, but like the rest of the chapter I really do like going through, and sort of like going through the main draw of this chapter is all the gifts that of course the girls give Uryu, and sort of like all of the 4 to 3 page interactions that they have with him. Really, I love the moment with Yuna as she's pretty much just going through, hands him over the scarf, then just sort of like tucks her neck under it like right next to his, and they just wear the scarf together. It's a really nice moment, and I do pretty much like seeing that callback all the way to one of the earlier volume covers, like I mentioned, my favorite volume cover. So I just sort of like how that's portrayed. The whole couples ring things definitely seems like something that Yahei would do, of course, of hiding it in all of the eggs. Just, I like how it's portrayed. And then, of course, Asahi, yes, you put all of this work into the chocolate. It's a little bit harder for me to care, being that, like, I don't really care that much about Asahi. Like, I think she's a fine character, but out of the other two, I have never once been like, oh yeah, Asahi's my favorite. Also, it's the whole thing of, like, she's the youngest out of the group, like, she's 3 years younger than Uryu, so it's one of those things where Uryu just turned 18, if I'm not mistaken, because this was his birthday. I don't honestly, is there an Amagami Sister wiki? I have not had to use this yet. Amagami Sister wiki. Okay, there is such a thing. So let me just go to characters and let's see how old Uryu is. Uryu age is 18. I'm pretty sure he was 17 at the beginning of the series, so yeah, he's 18 now, which means that if anything, Asahi's about to be like, what, 15? And I don't know about you guys, that's just a little weird to me. So yeah, I don't know, I don't really want to talk about it anymore, but either way, this was a very good chapter, one that I definitely enjoyed, and I'll be interested to see where we go from here. I say that already knowing where we go from here. We now go to, if I'm not mistaken, 3 chapters based on Uryu having interactions with each of the girls in the, like, the age succession of, like, hey, we're gonna have Yuna's and or Yahei, Yuna, and Asahi's, and of course, like, all of the young friends sort of interact in that area too, but, yeah, good chapter of this series, and I'll see you guys next time. Of course, thank you guys so very much for watching this video and tying off an Amagami Sister, chapter number 177. Again, this chapter was titled Tying the Skies Together, Realization. And hey, I've only put out 1 video in this series so far, but I will be covering the series till the very end, of course. I know I have like 5 chapters to catch up on, but I will be pretty much probably putting out 2 of these videos a week until we get fully caught up with it, just to ensure, like, hey, I want to make sure that I will be talking about the final chapter on the final chapter release date. That is the end goal here. And of course, I guess it's going to probably be like a 20, 30 chapter arc. So I think we're going to have some time for me to get caught up here. But yeah, if you guys want to check out the playlist, there'll be not only a link in this video's description, but also on the end card of this video. And yeah, with all of that being said, I'll catch you guys next time for Tying Off an Amagami Sister, chapter number 178. Yeah, until then, I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231, wanting Yuna to win. Signing out.